Coach, thanks so much for joining us on the call today. If you take a minute to tie up the opener against Wake Forest, please, and what you expect to see as you're back at home against Nichols on Saturday.
Well, it was a tough ball game for us. We've unfortunately made some first game mistakes that didn't help us. Wake Forest, a very good squad. A lot of veterans returning, 10 of 11 starters on the offensive side of the ball. I thought their true freshmen really came out and played with a lot of poise. Defensively, a big active defensive line. Did a good job of controlling the line of scrimmage. And, there was just a couple times we put ourselves in bad situations with some penalties that got us in long yardage type situations that make it difficult for anybody to convert. So I liked our fight. I liked the effort that our guys gave. We got to make sure that we play as error free as possible, and that's what you want to try to accomplish from week 1 to week 2. Big ball game this week. Nichols went in and defeated Kansas at Kansas. Get their first win against Power 16 in KU, and was very impressed. They've got, I coached 1AA ball, FCS ball for a long period of time, and they've done a really nice job of putting together an excellent squad. They've combined a lot of high school kids that have really panned out for them, and then also, with quite a few transfer guys that are also doing a good job for them. Good, salty defensive and offensive line, and some good skilled kids, and their quarterback really makes them go. So this will be a super challenge for us on Saturday evening.
We'll take questions for Coach Fritz, please. Star 1 on your telephone keypad will put you in the queue. The operator will introduce you.
Thank you. Our first question comes from Dan Totora from wakeupcalldt.com.
Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
Good, Dan. How are you?
Doing well. To go off of this past game against Wake Forest, going into the game, I spoke with Dave Clausen, and he spoke very highly of you and how close these matchups are. He said the last time that you played, I was really close and probably should have gone to you in his opinion of how close this game was and how you played up against them. What can you say about the litmus test of being close recently and then being close this last game, but ultimately not winning it in overtime? What do you take away from this as a coach, and what do you learn from it, knowing that you do have that respect on the other side of the sideline as well?
Well, it's frustrating. There's no doubt about that. You got to just keep forging ahead, when you get these games. And, our expectations are very high here. I think when I first came in, there's very little expectations. Just lining up right and playing hard and those kind of things, we're a plus to a lot of people. But now we feel like we're at a point in our program where we need to start winning these ball games and playing better throughout the game, because they're going to be close ball games. It's just the nature of Division I football. There's a lot of parity, and we need to make those plays when they come to us. But obviously no moral victories. We were disappointed, but it's game 1. We got to move on, and had a good decision with our team about that this morning, and that's what we'll do.
You've worked to elevate the culture at Tulane, and I know you said no moral victories, but off of the field, what are you seeing the culture becoming right now? Are you seeing the environment changing? How are you right now, Tulane?
I think it's the expectations. I think at one point in time, the expectations were not very high, and now we've got expectations. Our AD's doing a good job of helping change the culture of the entire athletic department, not just the football program. I knew when I came in here, and we feel like we've really taken some steps forward, particularly recruiting. We've got some better athletes in here, more of them, and that's what we need to just keep improving and start seeing it on the scoreboard.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take our next question from Chris Dabby from NOLA.com.
Hi, Coach. You kind of talked just a little bit now about the high expectations and then talking to your team this morning. What do you tell them after such a hard-fought close game and but not getting the win and kind of keeping them on the right track for trying to meet those high expectations? What sort of is the message that you share with them this morning?
Well, I think when they watched the tape, they could see how close it was, and play here or there, or a little bit smarter play here or there. We, better call here or there. We got an opportunity to win, and Wake Forest to find. Coach has done a great job there, Coach Clausen. They beat Texas A&M in a bowl game last year, and have won a lot of games in their conference. So it's frustrating, as I said before, but you just got to keep plugging away and learning from your mistakes and not repeating those mistakes and making plays when you need to. And I think our guys understand that and also know that this is one of 12, not all 12 of the games we play this season.
And then with what Nichols did over the weekend winning at Kansas, how much do you feel like that maybe gets the attention of your players so they're not going to see this as a lower division school?
Oh, I think they had our attention no matter what. Coach Rebo's done a tremendous job with that program. He's played in the 1AA playoffs last year and, competed for conference championship of the Southland Conference. I'm an old FCS 1AA coach myself. A lot of these kids were, played with the guys that played at Nichols, and he just has done a really good job of putting a roster together. He's got a lot of veterans, and probably the big difference is between his program. He'd probably say this too a couple of years ago, and now is his offensive line, defensive line are really formidable. They've got some good size, good athletes, and they got a lot of them. It's not just one or two. I know it was always difficult for me when I was the head coach at Sam Houston, putting together, some depth on the offensive and defensive line, and or maybe you had two guys that stood out, and another two guys you kind of had to hide a little bit. That's not the case with these guys. They're really good across the board with both lines, with both size and ability, and they've got some really good skill kids also on the offensive and defensive side.
And then do you find yourself at all recruiting any of the same players that they do, or is there enough of a difference?
Yeah, without question. There's a lot of carryover in recruiting. I know there's 4 or 5 kids. And when I first got the job, I came in and it was just hard to figure out the lay of the land, and there's quite a few dudes I wish I would have jumped on and recruited. That's just how it goes. And so it's also neat with 1AA sometimes. And again, I'm not sure how Coach divvies up a scholarship. Sometimes you give a kid on a quarter or a half, and which you can divide them up, at the FCS level, and all of a sudden that guy turns into a great player for you. I had some guys that turned into All-Americans for me at Sam. So that's a neat deal as well, that that you can go around and recruit guys and really develop those guys once they get into your program. But they've certainly done a super job of that.
Our next question is from Gary Smith from the New Orleans Advocate.
Hi, Willie. You had a lot of young, inexperienced guys on defense that appeared to be pretty active in that Wake game. Just what was your assessment of them, and particularly Jeffrey Johnson seemed to be pretty active?
I thought our guys played fast. They really did.
Mm-hmm.
There was a few errors that we made during the game, but for the most part, I thought we really played fast and physical. And I thought we had some young guys in the secondary playing for us that I thought really handled themselves well. And then also, you know, at linebacker position, Lawrence Graham and Marvin Moody, that's by far the most those guys have played, and they did a good job. And then up front, you know, Big Jeffrey played a lot of snaps, did a good job at the point. Devon Wright played a bunch for us up front. Also, probably got 20, 30 snaps. So yeah, a lot of young guys played for us on Thursday night, and I thought they handled themselves well in their first Division I game.
Jonathan Banks made 3 tremendous difference-making plays in the second half, but the consistency for the whole offense wasn't really there in that game. How did you assess his overall performance, and where does he need to get better?
Oh, I think Jonathan is probably like everybody on the offense, defense, the whole team, special teams. You know, there's some really good play to learn from. There's also some play that you'd like to have back and be able to do again. You know, the thing with the quarterback, as I've mentioned many times before, he probably gets too much credit when things go well, and he gets way too much blame when things don't go well, kind of like a head football coach. But I thought overall for his first game, he made some really competitive plays, like you talked about, particularly in the second half. But we've got to get consistency with all 11 guys, you know, in order to do what we want to do offensively.
And you mentioned the offensive line kind of tailed off, maybe got a little tired at the end. When you watched the tape, did that kind of bear that out, and how did you feel that group played overall?
Yeah, I thought it kind of was that way after I watched tape, and I think that you know, Wake Forest had a really good defensive line, a lot of movement, penetration, and really good athletes up there. And I was impressed with them. They were much better than I'd anticipated. And so that was you know, for a first game of the year, that was a group to really go against, and you know, which is good because we're going to play against another real good defensive line this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Joseph Halm from the Times-Picayune.
Hey, Willie. I got a question about the linebackers. We talked a lot before the season about how good that trio was going to be and how busy they were going to be in the season for y'all to be successful. After looking at the tape, how do you feel like how that trio performed against Wake?
I thought they played well. I thought Zach Harris had another good ball game for us. He's really fully healthy right now. He's been banged up the last couple of years a little bit, and you know, once you get into the season, and maybe haven't seen him at full speed, but I thought he played fast on Thursday night, and I thought the other two guys did too. You know, it was a unique offense. They run the zone, inside zone play, and you know, the RPOs and the zone read, they run a little differently than other people where they ride that mesh for seems like about a minute. But I thought they did show some really good patience, what you got to do in order to you know, be gap solid.
And then talk a little bit about the way P.J. Hall performed. I know he led y'all in tackles, and I know Franklin last year was a big tackler in secondary for y'all, especially at the end of the season. I mean, how did he do in his first game at safety?
Did a nice job. He just you know, he's a steady Eddie kind of player. He just doesn't get himself out of position very often, and you know, just a really smart, cerebral football player. He's got a high football IQ, and you know, that's one of the reasons why he's you know, probably the biggest reason why he's an effective player.
And then after looking at the tape, what do you feel like offensively up front you guys, you know, need to do better going into this week?
Oh, yeah, you know, got to be assignment sound. We got to do a good job of staying on our blocks. You know, we got whipped a few times up front. A lot of that was technique, just not stepping properly. And you know, as I said before, we're going to see it again. It's a good front that we're going to see, very active front with Nichols, and we need to see some big time improvement between week 1 and week 2 with our offensive line. I think it was a, big challenge coming out of the gate playing Wake Forest, As I said before, they've got a very talented front. But we're going to see that again this week.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you.
Coach, thanks for giving us a few extra minutes today. We look forward to hearing from you again next Monday.